You're watching Public Eye, brought to you by the New Vision Movement. And now, here's your host, Dr. Frank McField.
Welcome to Public Eye. This evening I have a very interesting guest for you, Mr. Lyndon Martin, a former representative of the District of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, and also a UDP member. But before we go to speak with Mr. Martin, I would like you to really bear this in mind. This program is not paid for by the United Democratic Party. Whatever I say, whatever I do in this program has absolutely nothing to do with the United Democratic Party and the United Democratic Party's leadership. So there's no connection between this program and the United Democratic Party. Of course, I was a member of the United Democratic Party government, and in that sense, I would believe that some of the views that I express might be consistent with views expressed by the United Democratic Party, but I'm quite sure also that many things that I say are not necessarily supported by the United Democratic Party. So let us just bear that in mind, that this is a Frank McField program and not a United Democratic Party program. I've been doing this program now for 8 years, and I do it out of the interest of trying to raise the political and social, moral, spiritual level of consciousness of the viewers. And we've had many, many different types of programs over the years. We've had my brother on here, who's a pastor. We've had ministers of religion. We've had Rex Nettleford on here. We've had playwrights, intellectuals. We've had a variety of persons on the show, and we're always looking for persons who are interested in being a part of the public eye, and trying as much as possible to bring issues that will somehow enlighten you and make you better able to make choices in your political, social, moral and spiritual life. Anyway, Lyndon, it's good to have you on the show, and so welcome to Public Eye. This is not your first time on Public Eye, right?
No, Dr. Frank, it's my second time. I thank you for having me, and I admire your determination to keep up with the Public Eye program, because like yourself, I was unsuccessful on May 11th in winning the election, but it doesn't mean that your interest in the country dies away because you're not involved in day-to-day politics. So I continue to monitor what's going on in the country, not only in the Legislative Assembly, but just in the everyday lives of our people. And I welcome this opportunity to have dialogue with you, as I always like to do, on topical issues that face this country.
And I'm quite sure that you monitor what's going on a lot more and a lot better than I do, because I find it very difficult to stay in touch with the political realities as they are now. But I guess, Lyndon, one of the interesting issues is that the fact that members of the United Democratic Party, including yourself, predicted that there would be this incredible increase in the cost of living for normal middle class and working class Caymanian people.
Certainly, Dr. Frank. We recognized early during the administration of the UDP, which was my first term in government, not yours, but the greatest challenge faced by the Caymanian populace was the decreasing consumption power of its population. The general public was just on a daily basis becoming less able to meet their daily demand as prices continue to rise, and the associated wage increase was not there to meet this increase in the cost of living. That's why I thought it a very aggressive program for the United Democratic Party, of which you served as a cabinet member, to directly attack one major cost, that being telecommunication costs, and to successfully liberalize telecommunication and reduce telephone rates in this country, in some instances 500, 600%. And telephone bills, although not an essential service, for some of us, cellular is almost essential. it made a big difference. But it's a need to continue to aggressively look at ways of affecting day-to-day lives of the people. Of course, the one unsuccessful endeavor that was undertaken by the UDP was to also look at CUC and Cayman Brac Power and Light, at how we could increase competitiveness in those industries, and as a result bring about lower costs. Unfortunately, we're not around to see that endeavor through, but I do believe that it's an inevitable challenge that will have to be met by a government. I know this government has created a committee to look at it, but I am doubtful for my own reasons that committee and the current administration will aggressively deal with the cost of living associated with the second highest cost faced in any household income, which is electricity. That's next to rent or mortgage. And if we can directly target that, and it is possible. So many people look at it and think it's such a big task that it's beyond being achievable. But to liberalize the generation of electricity is not too much of a big task, because you have to separate generation from distribution of electricity. So you wouldn't be creating new networks of utility lines around the island, but you'd be simply looking at alternative generators of electricity and different meters on the households. So I do believe that if this government doesn't tackle it, some other government will have to tackle it, because it needs to be tackled.
So, in your opinion, then, what is the basic what I'm trying to really say is that what could be really achieved in terms of minimizing the cost of electricity to the general consumer? What's really achieved? I mean, what would be some of the spin-off?
Well, there's so many. First, the licensing arrangement that allows CUC to make an above normal return on investment naturally cushions them from the necessity and the incentives to be properly efficient. So there's room just within the current structure to negotiate with CUC a more aggressive licensing arrangement that would bring about direct savings that would affect each household, allow each household to meet the expenditures. It will allow business people to become more competitive with external forces, would allow the tourism industry to charge less for their rooms, because a big part of their cost would be the cost of utilities. So the beauty of when you attack something like utility costs is its impact is so deep in the economy, and it affects everyone.
And the disadvantages would be, namely, in your opinion?
Well, obviously, different people have different perspective on the disadvantages. I know, CUC has been around. They came into Cayman Islands at a time where no other company would have. They deserve recognition and credit for providing electrical service to this country on a very reliable base for numerous years. And some would argue that it's now highly unfair, unethical, after the island has become at a developed stage, to now say you can bring in a newcomer.
Yeah, but that's the same with Cable and Wireless too. Cable and Wireless came in when it was unfavorable.
Of course, and the beauty of it, Cable and Wireless approach was a very noble one. Initially they protest competition, but right after they came up with their slogan, "Bring it on," and reduced their costs, became leaner and meaner and more efficient, and then came on and is still here as a major player in the market, and a very happy participant And what cable and wireless have realized is that competition hasn't solely capitalized on their market, but it's made the whole market grow a lot bigger. So they're still there as an aggressive player in a now bigger market. And I would like to see those involved with CUC to develop a similar approach, because the better off we can make the economy here, the better off CUC as a major player in the economy will also be.
And I think that's very important that we pay attention to the way in which Lyndon has really formulated this whole issue about why liberalize the electricity supply in the Cayman Islands. It would make the country as a whole better off, but it definitely will have an impact on the lives of the normal citizens in the Cayman Islands. So why then support a monopoly like CUC? Why is it that the PPM government did not see the wisdom of what the UDP government was pursuing? Why did the people not take enough interest in what the United Democratic Party was promising in its manifesto in the last election, to say we're going to do this with CUC? That was thrown out of the door with the baby water or with the baby, and now the same persons that paid no attention to the UDP program are now talking about the high cost of living. And people are talking about the high cost of living, but that's not the worst thing, because talking about it is not the worst thing that's happening. The worst thing really is that we talk about it, but we have no power to stop the cost of living from increasing, simply because we have no influence over those people who control the economy. And CUC happens to be one of those.
Certainly, you know, I wouldn't attempt to try to justify actions that I consider total illogical, such as the reasons that the PPM would support the monopoly. However, the fact is, Dr. Frank, every individual in this country is feeling the pinch of the high cost of living. And everyone is feeling the pinch of paying their electrical bill on a monthly basis. It seems to always be going up. It seems that the fuel factor adjustment never comes down. We know that fuel prices, price of oil per barrel have just topped $72 on Wednesday. So we know we will see increases again. The only answer to that is the beauty of competition. And we have proven that not just here, not just in the region, but globally. The competition for electricity works in not only improving the cost of living, not only reducing the cost of living, but there are other environmental issues that come into play. Because we live in a very socially conscious world, especially when it comes to environmental issues. And if we have 1, 2, or 3 providers, we have alternatives, and we have a population that is sensitive to the provider that is providing cleaner air and using different sources of ignition fuel that's cleaner to the environment, then people would tend to move there. So it results in other externalities that are positive to the community.
People are discovering, or they are attempting to discover ways to improve or to please or satisfy the customer because of competition. You know, there are issues that you have to take into account. Yeah, and I mean, I'm back to this whole point about the CUC situation, and you know, it's going to be next month is going to be 1 year since the last election. The 11th of May next month will be one year. I intend to replay on Public Eye, which the next one will be the second Thursday in May, because we are on the second Thursday and the last Wednesday in the month. It repeats, of course, the following night, which would mean if it shows on a Thursday night, repeats on Friday on the other channel, and then on the Sunday, and then when it shows on Wednesday, it repeats Thursday, and then shows. There are actually 3 showings each time. And what we would like to do is to really sort of show you what statements were made by the team in Georgetown, Henry Banks, Beulah, my sister Beulah, and Mr. Lloyd Sampson, what we were trying to offer people. Lyndon, I get the kind of feeling from going around that a lot of people seem to be very dissatisfied with the government. And I'm not, sometimes, like I said, I have a little bit of a problem because I'm not following the political issues that much. So I don't know whether or not the dissatisfaction is based upon issues that the government is trying to work with or not work with, or whether or not the dissatisfaction is just caused because people are just dissatisfied.
I think one of the big challenges that the PPM face was the high expectations that they created on themselves, and that always lead to a very challenging term. And they are now in a stage 1 year after that. There has to be some deliverables, and come this Friday, 2 days away, they will be presenting the budget for the 2006-2007 fiscal year, and they've already announced that they would be from late last year that they would be coming with a revenue package of additional taxation of some $25 million. And I read with interest the statement by the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Minister of Education, who chaired the press conference, that the tax measures have been found and will be presented on Friday. I will be listening, as I am sure the country will be listening very carefully to seeing what those measures are, because that will ultimately be the test of this government, because they created these expectations and now they've had to pay and come up with methods of paying for some of these things, which result in them having to come up with large taxes on the people. Now, I read just briefly a statement by the leader of the opposition in tomorrow's paper, basically analyzing the approach that was used by the UDP versus the PPM approach. We know that our current tax structure is a bit different than most economies, where economies tax based on wealth, income, or consumption. We in the Cayman Islands tax on consumption. And there are many pros and cons of that tax system, but we know that that tax system moves along with development. Once you get development, that tax base is going to grow, because once Ritz-Carlton was being built, there's lots of imports coming in, and the revenue base, the government grow. As a result of the UDP approach of pro-investment and keeping taxes down and going out there and encouraging and promoting development projects, it was not necessary for us to tax the people, which ultimately increased the cost of living to the people. Because one of the things I admired about you, Dr. Frank, was your commitment to try to make consumption tax a little fairer on the poor by your aggressive campaign over the years of removing import duty on the basic consumable items, the bread, the egg, and the milk, for the populace, which was commendable, but on a whole, the system that we have relies on development, and the current government seems to be taking an approach of raising money rather than through pro-development initiatives, through direct coercive tax measures. And I think on Friday, if they're able to convince the public to take these tax measures, they'll be a lot further on than I thought they would have been at this time, because I know at this particular point in this economy, we cannot handle any further increase in the cost of living.
I think that's That's definitely the truth. I mean, I know I can't personally, and I think that I'm much better off than a lot of people in that sense, you know. So it has to be very, very, very difficult for the majority of the people at this particular moment. But you know, it's funny though that the government is bringing a tax package, and that we can't hear anything about it. It doesn't, not even a leak. Why is it that the government has to be secretive about what revenue measures, taxes?
Well,
why is it that they have to, because they have to make it public at some particular point? Why is it that if they talk about consultation, dialogue with the people, that you don't dialogue with the people when it comes to putting taxes on them?
I think if there's any issue that a referendum should be done on would be taxes. So I look forward to hear the people of referendum views on that. But Doc, I also would like to recognize you on another initiative, because one of the other facts that affect the cost of living and the ability of Caymanians to meet their day-to-day expenditure, which is the bottom line of why we all get involved in programs like this, get involved in public, is to try to improve the quality of life of our people. But we have a problem where we live in a society where it's acceptable to bond and create bodies as merchants, such as the Merchant Association, such as the Chamber of Commerce, but it's not okay to bond together as employees. So you have the negotiating powers of the employer is so much stronger than that of the employees. So we will always end up in a situation where the employee is at a disadvantage. And you know, I know you have received public attacks, public ridicule for your initiatives over the years of creating a trade union, an organization to lobby and to bid for the people, for the employees. But to me, it's just so fundamental to the civic rights of the populace, is to be able to negotiate in union and power against employers. I recently read with interest an article by the new chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, the new president, Mr. Morgan DeCosta, who I have great respect for, talking about the high cost of living and the cost of living impact on creating more further demand for higher wages. But the approach that they took was that these higher wages would then make the companies less competitive. But you know, I would like to see someone arguing about how these companies will keep the cost of living down, so that they don't have to be a struggle for higher wages. So
because these companies themselves are part of the reason.
Part of the cost of living.
Yeah.
And I think it's necessary at this juncture in our maturity as a nation that we start to see bodies of employees bonding together. They can call themselves whatever.
You know, but the one of the big problems with this country is that there's no dialogue, no sensible dialogue, public dialogue. The only dialogue that you have is a dialogue in the Legislative Assembly. Politicians cursing each other.
Right, that's not always sensible.
And that's not always sensible, you see, because that is so biased. But there's never the forums of discussions about issues in your society, like you find in other places, that people can actually follow and understand, you know, what position that they're in. You know, when I watch CNN News, and the whole thing about having television in this country is you might as well not have television. This probably was the worst deal that the Caymanian people got, was this cable TV system, because it doesn't bring any new intellect. It doesn't bring any new communication possibilities. I watch CNN News and I watch the different, whether or not it's Wolf Blitzer or whether or not it's the young man there or you know, whoever it is, and you listen to these people analyze the American economy, analyze the American political system, analyze all the issues. You might not necessarily agree with all the points that they are presenting you with, but you're presented with a whole picture, so an American person can listen to the TV and at the end of the day have some general understanding of what's going on in the country. And we're not getting that happening here.
And you know, TV and radio, they're just such powerful tools for such discussion. And I think we need to reach that level of maturity where we can just respect each other's views and be comfortable enough to talk about issues and bring it to the forefront. But we know that there's so many topics that you just don't talk about in Cayman. You know, we just ignore them. We know that they're hitting us in the face, but we ignore them. We don't have dialogue. So I agree with you 100%. You know, I currently have a very aggressive group of young students in an economic class at ICCI. And that's what I always welcome, is the opportunity to sit with them and dialogue. And I know they starve for it. And a lot of them are Caymanians. They starve for that opportunity to share intellect, to share ideas, to debate topics.
I wonder where did these kids go to school, all these Caymanian kids go to school? Did they not have groups, and did they not discuss and get involved in social political issues when they were in college? Or they just went to school and they just studied and that was the end of it, and they come back here and they just go into the accounting firms and that's the end of it? That's the end of life?
We need to work hard at building some form of commitment to the future by Caymanians. We need to get some passion behind the Caymanians for the future, and bring groups together, think tanks, to just debate over issues, have heated debate and shake hands afterwards. And it allows everyone to grow, and those who monitor it also benefit from it. And that's just how mature countries work.
I mean, there has to be some kind of idea base. I don't believe that society can exist really without an idea base. And if it exists, it cannot exist in a healthy stage. Because even when we talk about the political arena, it's just as if some people should do the politics, but other people don't. Oh, it's too dirty for me. I don't want to have to deal with that, and blah, 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 old dirty politicians. And, you know, just the whole stigma which is attached to politics, political debate, and political activism in this country. So no, you don't necessarily have to go and be a member of the Legislative Assembly, but you can be a member of your union, you can be a member of your Chamber of Commerce, and you can be a member of your school group, and there you can discuss issues that impact you, and you can bring those issues to the wider society. But unfortunately, as we have it, it's like starvation. You're out there all the time. And in the last year, I don't know if I have ever heard one intelligent conversation. I'm serious. People don't want to talk about anything. And if they do, they talk about something for 4 minutes and they go away from it. You know, they know how to just destroy a conversation, so it doesn't get any place. No, there's no value for discourse in this community. There's no value, you know. Anyway, we're going to go for a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll deal a little bit more with some ideas. I think we want to talk about whether or not political parties are going to be feasible in the final analysis in this community.
China, beautiful tableware, classic cookware. Add the beauty of ambiance to your home with a wonderful array of tableware, cookware, knives, and more. Ambiance brings you the best Europe has to offer for your kitchen and table. Each design is a perfect blend of form and function. See the new Bosch coffee maker designed by Porsche, and bright and bold espresso machines by Francis. There's always something new and exciting in store at Ambiance. Visit Ambiance today in the Strand Shopping Center.
Beulah McField uses the freshest ingredients to create some of the most treasured meals on Grand Cayman. But you won't find them in a restaurant. Beulah and her staff make the meals the Rotary Club of Grand Cayman and other organizations deliver in the Georgetown area. Throughout Grand Cayman, volunteers deliver more than 12,000 meals a year. Call this number if you know someone in need or can help make deliveries.
It's just a quick cash thing. Yeah. Quick cash, deal with the matter. When you send money, you fi get it done proper. Said quick cash, you know send them yo. You fi tell them how fi send it so you get the money now. Said quick cash, much better. Quick cash, Cayman and Canada. Quick cash, USA. Tell him how fi send it so you get the same day. Said quick cash money transfer. There's never been a better way.
For 25 years, Foster's Food Fairs focused on 5 simple goals to show we care. The freshness of our products, providing value for your dollar, stocking a wide variety for your selection, ensuring that you get the best quality available, and multiple services for your convenience. Foster's Food Fair, 25 years of caring.
Yeah, welcome back. And what I keep on saying is to try to stimulate discussion in the community, so that people just don't jump on issues, but they arrive there. They arrive there, they arrive at the position that they take after lengthy thought and considerations. And sometimes, like I said, the media should assist the general population in achieving that particular goal of being informed about issues that is affecting the entire society. And Lyndon, I was thinking that this whole situation that we have in the Cayman Islands, unlike a lot of the Caribbean countries where people are passionate about politics and about political debate, and you can find persons that are not educated that can have lengthy political discussions with you, because politics is a part of life. Mm-hmm. It is not seen as something separate. It is not seen as something that you don't get involved with. It is seen as something that you are involved in. You are partisan. You do take a position. And that comes out of many different interests that a community would have. When you have a community, for instance, that is workers, you work for wages. Wages is important, and how the government handle the whole wage system, whether or not the government is promoting better wages, or whether or not the government is standing in the way of people achieving better wages and better working conditions. So working people have always went to support governments that they thought that would favor them. In Cayman, you have tons of working people, but the working people are not conscious of how to integrate their interests in the political debate and how to protect their interests in the political drama. Whereas the employer, through the Chamber of Commerce, for instance, knows how to introduce their interests in the political debate and how to protect their interests. And that was the whole thing about the union. The union was supposed to also be a way of trying to raise the consciousness level of working people to the point where they understood the benefits of collective action, of collective bargaining, knowing that in fact that they had an interest in protecting their wages and in advancing their wages and in having better working conditions for themselves. It would cost the employer probably more at the end of the day, and like they argue, that cost would probably come back on those same workers. But life is a vicious cycle sometimes in that sense, but people have to have some kind of feeling of progress, of progressing. Otherwise, everybody becomes stagnant and becomes very apathetic, and your country begins to fall in that sense, because the attitude of people begin to become very, 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 very negative. So we need to come to a point, and this is where I was saying, Lyndon, that I don't feel that the political party system here in the Cayman Islands really have a chance. I feel one is that the political party system is not supported by the movers and shakers. Because the movers and shakers, when I said movers and shakers, I think what I'm actually saying, the people who have the financial power. It's not in their interest to have a strong political system. It's not in their interest to have strong governments or strong politicians. It's in their interest to have systems that can be manipulated when they need to manipulate them, can be coerced when they need to be coerced. So you're not going to develop a strong government if you don't develop strong politicians. And you're not going to have strong politicians if you don't have strong organizations for those politicians to become strong as a result of. Because strength really is collective at the end of the day. It's not because one individual is whatever. It is because of the collective abilities, the collective power of those particular groups and their ability to perform. So that's just one of the reasons why I said, the people with the money don't have the interest in the political party system. We partly saw that in the election, how difficult it was to get campaign money to really go out. There was a lot of money spent, but it was not half as much as I believe is actually necessary when the competition really starts going like that, and you have all the different media. You have the radio, you have the TV, you have the papers, and you have the posters, and you have the T-shirts, and you have this and you have that. The money really wasn't flowing, although on the grapevine level, on the Mile Road level, the gossip is always there about how many $1 million this one get for their campaign. I always say, where did these people get this imagination from? Yeah. Incredible imagination.
You're absolutely right, Dr. Frank. Our party system is under challenge. It's a very new system. I am a strong believer that democracy works best when there's polarized philosophies represented by different political groupings. That is not the case in Cayman. We have political parties centered around individual personalities. We have those who support the Honorable Leader of Government Business now, Honorable D. Kurt Tibbetts, and those who support the Leader of the Opposition, McKeever Bush, not necessarily because of philosophies or particular beliefs and values, but just because of the personalities of those individuals, which is a natural weakness of our system and makes the system very vulnerable to such influences as can be felt by big money people who can throw support around a party that doesn't have an underpinning philosophy, an underpinning method of governance, so they can be easily swayed according to where the funds are coming, because we all accept as politicians, funding is very important. And if you have to sway your arguments of your political party to appease your financiers, that's what will occur under a party system that doesn't have strong upbringing and strong philosophy of what it stands for. And that is where we stand as a country right now. We do have 2 registered political parties, and if you look at either of the groups, you see they all have, both the United Democratic Party and the People's Progressive Movement will have lists of objectives and goals and mission, but they're all very surface level. There's no deep underpinning philosophy. What I want to see is a party that's going to come out and say that we support a reduction in the size of government and reduce tax rates in order to increase investment because we believe in pro-development. Something of that gives an underpinning of what that party is about, but we haven't become that formal as a party, so we allow ourselves to be accused and in certain instances to be vulnerable to influences from those who have the ability of influencing elections through the funding.
But you know, it's back to the whole thing of debate, the lack of debate. How are you going to create a philosophy where people don't spend some time, think and discuss and you know, sort of brainstorm? But my experience is that people just come up with things. You write it down. It sounds good. Let's write that down. That sounds good. Let's go for that. But there is no basic understanding that the people who these philosophies are supposed to represent. There's no basic understanding these people have in the philosophies.
Right. You know, I recall during our administration when, you know, we were accused of being too pro-DART, we were being too pro-Ritz-Carlton Hotel, we were too pro-development.
And we were traveling too much.
And we were traveling
And we were too pro-Cuba too.
Oh, right, too pro-Cuba, of course. We were visiting, especially yourself, visiting Cuba.
Yeah, well, see, he's in Cuba, sure.
But now we see, once they become in government.
Right, they're talking about, what is it, the multi-destination tourism.
Multi-destination tourism,
we started,
Cuba.
We started that concept.
Right.
Who started it?
You know, I saw them at the opening of the Ritz-Carlton praising the project.
And they had their party conference at the Ritz-Carlton.
Right, I saw the DART project is on the Queens Highway, on the Tibbetts Highway, is a major project that's keeping the construction industry of this country
and
going
importing
down.
And giving them good taxes too.
Correct. So
if they didn't have that, the revenue pockets would really be in trouble.
So it's important that we not only have philosophies, but we have consistent philosophies, and that, as you rightfully point out, only comes as a result of having academic, intellectual debates where we put things on the table and hammer them through. You know, right now the country is up in a roar over the rollover policy, but we don't see people sitting around and talking about it. We send in a letter to the paper, and that's it.
And usually in an insulting manner.
In an insulting manner.
If people call up on a talk show, the radio talk show, it's usually in an aggressive, insulting manner. It is not about debate. It is about me, how I feel right now. And, not how I might feel 10 minutes after I hear the position of somebody who is more informed.
Okay. And a subject such as that, which we know a rollover policy has plenty good to offer the country. We know there are plenty of risks associated with it. It's an ideal subject for us to sit down and have dialogue. Have a national debate on it. Let's bring some great minds together and talk about it. Let's debate it. But you know, we throw it over in the paper. We call into the talk show and we make it very personal. We talk about how it's affecting me, how it's affecting my business, how I'm going to sell out, how the country is going to go down. But we need to bring topics like that, and we need the parties to be able to issue clear statements of what are their beliefs and philosophies on issues such as that.
Yeah, and that's the point there. I mean, because like I think that like I told you, I never debated the rollover policy. I didn't think it could work. I didn't think it needed to work. I thought that the UDP, in given the status grants, had already changed the country again for good, and there was no going back. That number would create a larger foundation that would be cemented at some particular point in the future, that would make it possible for larger numbers of people to live here. You see, Lyndon, I think that if people are so different in the world, if everybody's so different, then people can't live together. But the similarities between modern man and woman is so great because of all of the civilization that we've so-called created, especially the communication parts, where we wear similar clothes, we think similar, we eat similar food, we drive similar cars, you know, we have similar diseases. I mean, people are like that. So if I bring somebody into the society that can fit in, what is the point of getting rid of them again? Why? Because I need to remain in power. That's the only reason.
Right.
I need to be the one who is recognized as control it. That can be the only reason. Because if there's still work here for the person, I always say, if there's still work for the person, why you get rid of them? Why don't you accept the fact that this is a settler society that was never totally populated, and that the population process is what is happening? Okay, and that we have to get to some point where we have the numbers of a population that would create a viable economy.
I recently read an article in Cayman Net News by Mr. Andre Ayton that talked about there's a difference between growth and development. And I thought it was such a well put together article, because at a population of 50,000 people, we have not reached our point. And we know that labor is your greatest constraint for an economy to grow. And if we're going to continue to require labor and availability of good human capital, the question then becomes, how do we grow that number and continue to attract good people and at the same time appease our populace? And I think it's well tied together to the whole issue of inflation and cost of living, because the larger population base we have, the greater number you have to distribute your costings over. we have some very alarming statistics. When we look at our workforce, 48% of our workforce is Caymanian and 52% are work permit holders. So we have, and of that 48%, only about half of those are indigenous Caymanian and the other half is status holders. We cannot expect Caymanians to go out there and multiply at a rate that would substitute that 52%, because they can't afford to. The cost of living is too high.
They cannot afford to.
They can't afford to.
That's right.
So to grow your population, that you're not constantly relying on transient workers that will come, stay, and leave, you need to increase your base, and we weren't able to increase it through natural production. So the only way to have done so was through grants of status, which created a larger pool, because that some 10,000 Caymanians in the labor force is too much of a small pool to start with to try to hopefully one day have some kind of sustainable population on a long-term basis. But as long as we constantly have the demand for labor, we have to find some way. And the question you pose, if the work is still there, why send that person home and bring someone else? Yeah. Because the job is still there.
And jobs create jobs. That's what I always argue. Right. So you're not going to have less jobs. You're going to have more jobs as a result. So if somebody's thinking fear, okay, somebody's going to come and take something away from me that belongs to me. But what belongs to anybody here? Right. The majority Caymanians, nothing belongs to them. They don't own anything. They own mortgages. They own payments on cars. But we don't really own anything. So say, Cayman belongs to me. No, Cayman does not belong to me. The only thing that belongs to me is what I actually have a right to. Our government doesn't really even support us like how other governments in other places support you. So we don't really get that much from being a Caymanian, except that we're in a place, we have a right to work, and it's a pretty nice place, and it's a pretty nice place to work, okay? So what's somebody going to really take from me? So what I look at, if they come here and they make my standard of living worse, I have a problem. If they come here and they make my standard of living better, then I'm happy. So it's all about how they will influence my standard of living.
Of course.
That is bottom line to me. So I say, if somebody is educated by India, or somebody is educated by Ireland, that education has cost those countries a tremendous amount of money. That even if I could produce more children here, I might not have the ability to give them that kind of education because we do not have the collective resources to build that kind of capacity. And as the world becomes more competitive, you get a lawyer from someplace, and rather than you seeing as getting an asset for your society, because it helps the circulation of resources, rather than seeing it as an asset, a lot of people just see it as a burden because they see it as competition. It's the same thing why CUC would see the introduction of another electricity supplier as a burden, as negative. So I think the difficulty in terms of explaining the immigration situation and getting people to see why the rollover policy is not helpful ultimately in itself, because it does not achieve for the Caymanian what the Caymanian really wants to achieve. Consciously, what we want to achieve is that we want to stay in control of our country. By the rollover policy, we feel that we could stay in control of our country, stay in control of the jobs in our country, okay? What I'm saying is that we are not in control, because nobody is in control in that way. You see, because all that you're in control of is what you possess as an individual, because there's no collective wealth in that sense that is being distributed on a daily basis. Our political system is not based upon the management of any kind of collective resources that is distributed to people, you know? And so I don't really think that we're really benefiting all that much from going through all this trauma. And it's not just that it's creating trauma for Caymanians, it's creating a trauma for a lot of people that were here too. And one of the arguments, of course, Lyndon, that I made, of course, is that the hurricane came and a lot of people stayed and rebuilt. And after they stayed and rebuilt, 1 year after, well, 1.5 years after, you tell them to pick up and go. And this government should have had the courage to say, it's not workable, at least not now. You know, it's not necessary, at least not now. You're preserving the jobs for the young Caymanians. Preserving what jobs?
The whole management of human capital in the Cayman Islands need to be examined carefully, because there are things, better initiatives that we can do to improve the skill base of our Caymanian young people to move into jobs, but we must make sure that the economy is at a level that those jobs are there.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to have the foreign worker to work there also, and we have to create an atmosphere where both parties understand and respect the role of the other. Now I know there's a strong argument that there's been a failure over the years of protecting certain sectors that Caymanians could do. And I've argued for some time that things such as apartment complex, you know, there's a Caymanian dream of owning a duplex and renting it as my retirement. If something like that was protected to be offered for Caymanians, business, so that we could see that the more work permit holders that came, that rented these places, provided benefit directly to the Caymanian also, then there would have been a more acceptable relationship between the two parties. So we need to analyze how we're managing human capital in this country.
And also, Lyndon, perhaps having a business is perhaps a little bit more important than having a job.
Oh yeah.
Help me to have a business. Help me to grow my business. Don't protect a job for my child. You know, so that's where we're trying to protect jobs for Caymanians. We should be trying to protect the businesses for the Caymanian by making sure that the conditions to get into business and be successful in a business are there for the Caymanian.
Of course, because as a country, we started from nothing. We didn't have the resources to build this country up, so we had to have foreign capital to build the country up. We had to bring in foreign labor. We must go through that transition now in the ownership of capital and the ownership of commerce. We need to try to get Caymanians into business areas.
That's what's important.
Very important. Yeah. And I make this point, Dr. Frank, when we're looking at human capital and the ability of Caymanians to participate in the labor market, the recent series of statements made by the Minister of Education on the criticism of the public education system, basically to come out publicly and say that those who come through the public education system, education level is below acceptable level. It is not a good promotion for the students who are coming out in June who are going to look jobs.
Yeah.
If you have a problem, because he owns that system now, he's in charge of that system for 1 year, so he has to accept responsibility for it. It's no longer Roy Barden, Truman Barden, Benson Ebanks. It is now the Honorable Alden McLaughlin's Minister of Education, and it's imperative that whatever problems are there, that he deal with them, but you don't have to come out publicly and criticize. Now that was a statement that personally affected me. My children are in the public education system, so when you criticize them, it's criticizing their employment ability.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the government seems to be, Alden seemed to be always making statements that are, off the cuff. And that could be very, 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 very damaging. And I hope they don't clamp my car, because if they clamp my car, they're going to be like Arden and say, I ain't paying. They have no legal right to clamp cars, according to Mr. Arden McLean. Huh?
Certainly.
So I guess if they clamp the car at the airport, then what you do, just tear it off?
Call the police and tell them that you're not paying.
Follow the example of your leaders, people. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. Anyway, Lyndon, it's been nice to have you on Public Eye, and we'd like to get you back here again as soon as possible, because I know we could have covered quite a lot more areas, but we always like to go in a little bit more in depth, analyze it, and not just be superficial. You're not a superficial person. You're a very analytical person, and I think that out of all the politicians around me when I served there in the last government, I think that you were always the most analytical of everybody. You would get your teeth in something and look at it in totality and not just the one-sided thing. So it's good to have you here with us on Public Eye, and we would like to invite you back again. And don't give up on the politics, man. We need thinkers in politics.
Thank you, Dr. Frank. It's good to be here, and there are many ways of being in politics other than being an elected member.
That's true. I agree with you there. Okay, well, we'll see you next time.
Public Eye has been brought to you by the New Vision Movement.